Today's video focuses on Nosferatu, best known for his show-stopping performance in episode 16 of SpongeBob SquarePants Season 2 Graveyard Shift, which launched him into international success and cemented his memory in the hearts of millions. Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Marie, and if you are a longtime subscriber, I've had this channel for 2 weeks. And if you are new here, hello, welcome. I hope you enjoy this video and I hope you maybe decide to stay. Without further ado, let's get started. Today I'm going to be discussing the Stoker Estate / Prana Films case involving Nosferatu that almost changed the face of cinema forever. This case is such an important part of cinema history, and it really boggles my mind that not a lot of people know about it. So I'm going to talk about it. Let's get started. So before we get into the actual case, let's talk a little bit of background. So this case involves a little-known novel, Dracula, by Bram Stoker, and a little-known film, Nosferatu, directed by F.W. Murnau. So quick disclaimer, I'm taking German, don't know how to pronounce any of these German names, so if you are a German speaker, I apologize. So our little-known novel, Dracula by Bram Stoker, is actually considered to be one of the most influential vampire novels of modern time. Chances are you've probably seen at least one adaptation of this novel, and there are countless, and I mean countless, adaptations of Dracula. There are so many that I don't even know how many there are. And at the end of the day, I can absolutely see why there have been so many adaptations made. It's a good book, I've read it more times than I care to admit, and it has memorable characters that work for just about any time period and setting. The storyline and story structure also lend themselves very well to a screenplay format. Enter Prana Films. Prana Films was the company that distributed Nosferatu, and that was the only film they distributed, and later in the video I will tell you why. The founders of Prana Films, like many other film companies throughout the ages, thought that Dracula would make an amazing film, and so they decided that they were going to make an adaptation of Dracula. Now that's all fine and dandy, except for one thing. Florence Balcom, Bram Stoker's widow, refused to give Prana Films the rights to Dracula, and they asked multiple times and she refused every single time. In my research, I didn't really find a reason as to why she was so steadfast in refusing to give Prana Films the rights, but I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt and say it was because she wanted to keep the integrity of her husband's work intact. If only she saw BBC Dracula. But this video isn't to talk about how awful that adaptation was, so let's get back on track. However, the founders of Prana Films, being the stubborn mules that they were, and the artists that they were, decided that they were going to go ahead with the film, with or without Florence Balcom's permission. Yeah, of course, Prana Films, despite being quite stubborn, weren't stupid enough to call their film adaptation Dracula and just rip off the plot completely. They had to make changes, and there are quite a few changes in the storyline. The first thing that they did was change the names. Count Dracula became Count Orlok, Mina became Ellen, Jonathan became Hutter, and Renfield became Nock. He's an icon, isn't he? They took out a huge portion of the subplot, and in the end of this version, Mina/Ellen dies. Great ending. However, when watching the film, you can definitely tell there are still a lot of elements from the novel left in the movie. However, being that they did change the ending and parts of the plots, and the fact that characters were changed or completely omitted, makes this film technically more Dracula-inspired than a straight ripoff. Nosferatu, directed by the now legendary F.W. Murnau, premiered in March of 1922 at the Berlin Zoological Garden and was considered an instant hit. It was lauded for its special effects, considered quite advanced for the time being, and for its striking, disturbing imagery. Unfortunately, Nosferatu's fame was quite short-lived. Florence Balcom caught wind of Nosferatu quite quickly, and this is where our case begins. The Stoker Estate and Florence Balcom quickly took Prana Films to court over copyright infringement. Naturally, Prana Films attempted to dispute this copyright infringement case at first, saying that they changed the plot and that their characters were so different. I mean, for God's sake, there is no Renfield. His name is Nock. I mean, so what if they both eat flies? Everybody does that, right? However, Prana Films also knew that fighting against this dispute was a lost cause. They had stolen Stoker's material, and they would be guilty, so they immediately filed for bankruptcy to avoid any copyright infringement charges. And that is why the only film that Prana Films ever distributed was Nosferatu, because they didn't exist after this whole debacle. And they were correct. They were found guilty, and the Stoker estate and Florence Balcom won this case, and all copies of Nosferatu were ordered to be burned. So that's the end of the story, right? Almost 100 years later, we know that's really not the end of the story, because we still have Nosferatu as a film today. So how come if Nosferatu, which all copies were burned, still survives to this day? Well, here's where it gets interesting. While Nosferatu did not see the light of day for a very long time in Europe, it did premiere in the United States in 1929. Dracula was already in the public domain in the United States, and this is what allowed Universal Pictures to make the 1931 version of Dracula with Bela Lugosi. That means the Stoker edict of having every single copy of Nosferatu burned only applied to Europe and not the United States. And by the time all copies of Nosferatu were burned in Germany, copies of the film had already made their way to the United States. And it premiered here, and it was a wild success. If Prana Films had made Nosferatu in the United States, they would have never run into this legal mess. However, because of an issue with the copyright law in Germany, however, due to an error in the copyright laws in Germany, Dracula wouldn't be in the public domain in Germany until 1961. Big difference. While Nosferatu did premiere in the United States in 1929, it was considered a lost film for quite some time. As we all know, pre-1930s films haven't really been well archived, and that's why so many of them are lost, and nitrate burns very easily. So how did we find Nosferatu again? Legend has it that there was one lone film that they found, and from that lone film is where we get all modern copies of Nosferatu. Probably not the case. While that is an amazing, miraculous story, we actually get our modern copies of Nosferatu from a film restoration in the mid-1990s where they used 5 existing films to put Nosferatu back together. And I'm really glad that that restoration happened. Nosferatu is an amazing film, and it is a part of cinema history and always will be. So what do I think of this whole issue? On one hand, Florence Balcom had every right to go after Prana Films over copyright infringement, because it's true she never did give them the copyright. However, Prana Films' intentions weren't bad. They genuinely just wanted to make an adaptation of Dracula, and they went to Florence multiple times asking if they could please have the copyright. They planned on giving Bram Stoker his due. So this wasn't a case of malicious intent. This was a case of stubborn artists really wanting to make a film come hell or high water. So while they did do something illegal, it wasn't done with malice. And I'm biased here. I love Nosferatu. I think it's an incredible movie, especially for its time. I remember my first time watching it at a German expressionist exhibit, and I fell in love with it. I thought for its time it was revolutionary, it was new, it was fresh, and it really left an impression on me. And I think that's what good films do. And obviously it wasn't just me that it left an impression on. Nosferatu has become more than just a film. So much lore and mystery surrounds the production of this film, which I will be discussing in another video because it's really cool and I want to geek out about it. And its impact on pop culture is undeniable. I mean, for God's sake, there was a Nosferatu reference in SpongeBob. Nosferatu also set the standard for every vampire film that came after it and set the rules of the vampire genre. Nosferatu actually created the vampire dies by sunlight trope, not the book. In the book, Dracula is only slightly inconvenienced by sunlight. He just needs a parasol and he'll be fine. Nosferatu has even gotten a couple of remakes. My personal favorite is the 1979 version. You should watch it if you want a lesson on how to make a remake correctly. In conclusion to this video, and because my camera battery is dying, Nosferatu is deservedly a classic, and it has made its mark on pop culture from film to music. It really is quite a miracle that this film has survived for this long, seeing as almost every single copy of it was burned. If you're interested in checking this legendary film out, I am going to leave a link to a YouTube video of the full film because it's in the public domain now, so you can watch it completely for free. And yes, with the English title cards. If you want to do a deeper deep dive on Nosferatu, I definitely recommend checking out the 1979 remake and Shadow of the Vampire, which is just just a great film. That's it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, subscribe, click the notification bell on, and let me know in the comments what other films you'd like me to talk about, because old films are a passion of mine. So yeah, let me know what other old film scandals and mysteries you want me to talk about. If you want to see more of my unearthly pallor, I recommend you follow me on Instagram and TikTok. I post on TikTok at least 5 times a week, and I post on Instagram whenever I want. I will leave my handles to both of those in the description box down below. Stay safe, and I hope to see you guys in my next video. Bye!